But Gold Rush, when they heard about a TV show about digging for gold, I just think of those old gold hunters. Yeah, it's A. Parker had basically turned Tony's own bloodline against him. The ultimate betrayal came just a few weeks later. As Tony ramped up his operations on the Indian River in Paradise Hill, one of his main water pumps, a really important piece of his complex sluicing network, had a terrible failure. We had that pump for 30 years, been very reliable, but at one point you're going to have to say goodbye and get a new one in there. We're lucky to have a new pump on site. We just have to put it on behind the engine. He needed a specific hard-to-find hydraulic motor to get it running again. His people searched their own junkyards and called suppliers in Dawson, but nobody had one. The downtime was costing him tens of thousands of dollars each day. There was only one person who almost certainly had a spare. Parker Schnabel, whose operation was known for having a huge inventory of parts for exactly this kind of emergency. So Tony Beets, the king of the Klondike, was forced to make a call to his young rival. He made a direct request, miner to miner, asking if Parker could spare the motor to keep his operation from stopping completely. And Parker, in a cold, strategic move, shut him down. He said he didn't have a spare he could give away, that he needed everything he had for his own push for 10,000 ounces. But the message was clear. Parker had a brand new $11,000 ripper shank for Tony's son. But for Tony himself, there was nothing. Parker had helped Kevin, making sure a thorn would be permanently stuck in Tony's side. And he said no to Tony's important request, twisting the knife. He wasn't just competing with Tony on the gold totals anymore. He was actively working to mess up his entire empire from within. He had betrayed Tony by helping his rival's son and then turning his back when Tony himself was in need. This wasn't business. It was personal, and it fed right into the quiet whispers and conspiracy theories that have surrounded the show for years. Whispers in the muck. For years, fans of Gold Rush have argued about how much of the show is real and how much is made up for television. The incident with the ripper shank and Parker's later denial of Tony's request for a pump motor poured gasoline on that fire. A popular conspiracy theory suggests that many of the equipment failures are not as random as they seem. Was the ripper shank really missing from Tony's dozer by accident? Or was it a convenient plot point set up to force a fight and create a dramatic storyline? Some insiders whisper that producers on these shows are masters at creating conflict, gently pushing the miners into situations that are guaranteed to make for good. Another theory revolves around Brennan Rule's return. He was a master dirt mover who had a famously explosive falling out with Parker. His sudden appearance as Kevin's foreman, right at the moment Kevin decides to go independent, seemed almost too perfect. Was it a coincidence, or was his hiring a strategic move, maybe even suggested by someone behind the scenes, to add another layer of drama to the inevitable meeting between Kevin and Parker? Having Brennan there, the man who once walked out on Parker in anger, made the entire exchange far more compelling. But the most powerful conspiracy theory is that Parker and the show's producers are working together on a long-term plan to remove Tony Beets as the king of the Klondike by showing Parker as the generous, forward-thinking young boss in making. Tony looked like the stubborn old-school relic whose own family is leaving him. So he started his own mindset, and that's been something that's been, a very big hole to fill in our operation. And then Tony and I are having some minor arguments. The story slowly shifts audience loyalty. Parker helping Kevin was the ultimate chess move. It made him look like a hero, while at the same time weakening his biggest rival. Shutting down Tony's request later was just the confirmation. Parker is playing a different game, one where television stories and real-world gold totals are deeply connected. The truth is likely buried somewhere in the middle, a messy mix of real-life conflict and producer-driven storytelling. The miners are really moving dirt and the gold is certainly real, but the path they take to get it that might be paved with more than just good intentions. And no matter what was real and what wasn't, the results of Parker's actions were about to spread across the entire Klondike. The fallout from Parker's decision created a new Cold War in the Yukon. On the surface, things continued as normal. We had a 1,000-ounce goal last season. It's at like 1,200 something an ounce right now. So Alaska is apparently a gold mine. There's a lot of gold mining in Alaska. Yeah, we're actually just across the border on the Yukon side. So it's actually in Canada where we're at, right in the Yukon. Parker's crew kept sluicing at a crazy pace at Dominion Creek, chasing their massive goal. Tony's crews on the Indian River in Paradise Hill kept feeding their wash plants, pulling in impressive early season totals that broke Tony's own personal records. He banked 774 ounces, worth nearly $1.9 million in just the first few weeks. To any outside observer, the Beets machine was running better than ever. But under the surface, the damage was done. Tony was now fighting a war on two fronts. He had his main rival, Parker, aiming for a record-breaking season. And now he had a new unpredictable competitor in his own son, Kevin, who was armed and helped by Parker himself. The air-dropped ripper shank had allowed Kevin to get to work immediately, and he was now ripping into the ground on Scribner Creek, a constant reminder of the split in Tony's family and Parker's role in it. Tony's denial for the water pump motor had cost him precious time and forced him into a costly workaround. Tony's new pump is a beast, using a massive 12-cylinder marine engine, a setback that hurt his pride as much as his wallet. The power balance in the Klondike had been permanently changed. It was no longer a simple two-way race between Parker and Tony. It was now a complex web of partnerships, family grudges, and strategic sabotage. Parker had shown he was willing to play dirty, using Tony's family problems as a weapon against him. He wasn't just trying to outmine Tony. He was actively trying to tear apart his operation piece by piece. The battle for the Klondike was no longer about who could move the most dirt. It had become a mental game of chess played with dozers and wash plants across a 100-mile board. As Kevin started to sluice his first pay dirt, a process made possible only by Parker's help, the real question came up. Could the Beets empire survive an attack from both the outside and within? Or was this the beginning of the end for the king of the Klondike, planned by the young prince, who was determined to take his throne no matter the cost? Parker's move was either brilliant strategy or a low blow. Like and subscribe for more untold stories. But let me ask you this. Great idea for a show, and it's doing really well. Money, dirt, and family fights keep Gold Rush going. But under all the TV cleanups and broken machines is a hidden world of sneaky plans and backstabbing. Parker, Schnabel, just made a choice that will change his fight with Tony Beets forever, turning a family argument into a real war and cutting off important help when it was needed most. The quiet fight for Klondike gold. The other king is Parker Schnabel, the young guy who has changed how the game is played. Just 50 miles southeast of Dawson City, Parker controls a huge 7,500-acre piece of land on Dominion Creek. This land is famous, hiding pockets of gold that miners dream about. Last season, Parker hit the jackpot in a spot called the Money Pit, pulling out an amazing 4,112 ounces of gold. For the last 3 weeks, the Money Pit has averaged 480 ounces a week. What do we got? 30-40. There's 100,140,150,200. 220. Now he's chasing that golden streak north, trying for an incredible 10,000-ounce season. To do that, he needs to wash more dirt than ever before. A huge job that pushes his crew to the breaking point. His goal is an amazing $25 million, a number that would make his place not just as a king, but as an emperor of the gold fields. Both men are chasing record-high gold prices, which have climbed to $2,500 an ounce. For Tony, this is a chance to get better and save his falling apart empire. For Parker, it's a chance to build a legacy that will last forever. But the ground in the Klondike is really dangerous. It's a maze of creeks and hills you can't cross, making each claim feel like a lonely island. Stories among old-timers talk about how the frozen ground itself seems to remember things. Sometimes swallowing equipment whole or showing veins of gold in places no one thought to look. Both Parker and Tony know that in this land, you are only as strong as your last cleanup and your most loyal crew member. But loyalty, as it turns out, was about to become the most valuable and hardest to find thing in the entire Yukon. Parker needs to pull in over 350 ounces of gold before the harsh Yukon winter freezes them out. It's a really good team right now, and I've tried hard to give everybody as much freedom as I can. The house of Beets was in chaos. The terrible previous season had done more than just hurt Tony's money. It had broken apart his family. The constant pressure and mess had driven a wedge between them all. His son, Kevin Beets, who had worked for his dad for over 20 years, had finally had enough. He made the bold choice to leave the family business and go out on his own, a move that sent shockwaves through the Klondike mining community. Tony publicly said he wished him well, but the tension was clear. The Beets dynasty was losing a key player. Kevin rented the Scribner Creek claim from his father, a 44-acre piece of land located between Tony's Indian River claim and Parker's Dominion site. It was a huge gamble to make up for the problems of last year. Tony's planning an all-out attack on his Indian River claim. Kevin put his life savings into the new business, setting a big goal of 1,000 ounces for his first season. He was running his own show now, but he was doing it with used equipment borrowed from Tony. And as anyone who has seen Tony's operation knows, his machines are often held together by pure will and a few quick welds. The problem started right away. Kevin's D10 dozer, a really important piece of machinery needed to tear through the frozen ground, arrived with a vital part missing: the ripper shank. This 10-foot-long steel claw is needed for breaking up the hard, icy muck. A dozer without a ripper is like a truck without tires. You simply cannot mine. Kevin and his small crew, including his partner, Faith, and his new boss, Brennan, rule. As you can see, our fine tailings just won't stop building up. So my plan is to cut a hole through this road and send them out into that end of the cut. The tailings pond is full. Brennan plans to create an opening in the wall, allowing water and fine tailings to flow out into lower ground. Were stuck before they even started. They couldn't strip the 3 acres of dirt they needed to clear to get to the pay dirt. Every day they waited was a day they weren't sluicing. A day they were falling further behind on their 1,000 goal. Desperate, Kevin knew he couldn't go back to his father. Asking Tony would mean admitting he failed before he even began. It would hurt his pride and could create even more family drama. He needed a ripper shank, and he needed one now. There was only one other person in the Klondike with an operation, big enough and with enough spare parts to possibly help him. It was a long shot, a meeting that would be filled with years of history and unspoken competition. Kevin had to ask for help from his father's biggest competitor, a move that would set in motion an unexpected chain of events. The trip to Parker Schnabel's claim felt like crossing enemy lines for Brennan Rule, Kevin's new boss. It was especially weird. Brennan had worked for Parker for 6 long years, a job that ended in an explosive fight. He hadn't spoken to his old boss in years. For Kevin, he had only ever seen Parker in passing, usually when Parker was arguing with his dad. Tony The air was thick with tension as they drove toward Parker's camp on Dominion Creek, 10 miles northeast of Parker's old claims. Dominion Creek is 7,500 acres, a place that felt a world away from their own small, struggling operation. They passed abandoned skeletal dredges from 100 years ago, half sunk in the musk, reminders of how many miners had failed in this very land. When they arrived, the meeting was surprisingly calm. Parker greeted Brennan like an old friend. And when Kevin explained his situation, that he had gone out on his own, and Tony had given him a dozer without a ripper, Parker's entire mood changed. He asked a really important question. Was Tony involved in Kevin's new operation in any way? When Kevin said he was completely on his own, a look of understanding, or maybe opportunity, crossed Parker's face. He knew exactly how hard it was to start out. He also knew what it was like to work under the shadow of a powerful person. Without waiting a second, Parker agreed to help. He offered Kevin a brand new ripper shank, a piece of equipment worth an amazing $11,000 on credit. He told Kevin not to worry about paying for it right away, to just start a tab. It was an act of incredible kindness, one that left Kevin and Brennan shocked. Parker even offered a hug and an open invitation to come by for a beer any time. For Kevin, it was a huge win. He now had the part he needed to start mining to finally get his dream off the ground. He had solved his biggest problem. But as Kevin drove away from Parker's claim, a hero in his own story, he had no idea that he was just a piece in a much bigger game. Parker's act of kindness was not just about helping a young miner get started. Here is where the real story, the one that happens off camera, takes a dark turn. Parker's gift to Kevin was not an act of simple kindness. It was a calculated master move, a betrayal delivered not to Tony's face, but through his own son, by helping Kevin, Parker was making the split in the Beets family bigger. He was supporting a new independent competitor right on Tony's doorstep, an operation that would take resources and attention away from Tony's main goal of hitting his 5,000-ounce target. Every ounce of gold Kevin found on Scribner Creek was an ounce that Tony's family operation could have possibly mined.